Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Let's get it started. So tonight we are expecting at about 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. So in less than an hour, Donald Trump will be making an announcement. Obviously, there's a ton of 2024 speculation. I anticipate that that's exactly what he'll do, that he'll announce that he's running for president in 2024. Why is this important? I think right now he is acting from a position of weakness. I think the only reason he's doing this, there are two reasons, actually, that I think he's doing this. One is I think that he believes this is his only chance to stave off any investigations. He's obviously contending with the Mar-a-Lago documents investigation. He is contending with the New York AG's investigation, civil investigation, criminal investigation into the Trump organization. He's contending with the Fulton County DA's investigation. He's contending with the January 6th investigation. So a lot of litigation surrounding Donald Trump. I think that he views his run for president as something of a way to insulate himself. And so he can basically say, oh, if I'm running for president and they move forward with any investigation of me, well, I'll just cry foul and just say that the only reason that they're doing it is because they want to hurt my chances in 2024. Now, something to remember is that he does that anyway. He's doing that right now, so it really doesn't matter whether he's a candidate or not because he's going to make the exact same claim. I think that's something to remember in all of this. So, I would just say that, while we wait for his inevitable bullying of the DOJ and all of these different entities that are investigating him, recognize that he is making those exact same claims already right now. And so he's going to make those claims regardless of whether he's running for president. So don't allow yourselves to be bullied by virtue of the fact that he's running for president. Just move forward with the investigations. The other reason that I believe that he's doing this is because his position, his stock is so weak right now because all of his endorsed candidates in major swing states were so thoroughly and decisively repudiated at the ballot box this past week in midterm elections. And so I think that he can see the writing on the wall and basically recognizes that Ron DeSantis is being viewed as the heir apparent in the Republican Party. And so he knows that if he doesn't get in right now and clear the field right now, that all of the attention is going to be heaped onto someone else, namely Ron DeSantis. And if there's one thing that Donald Trump can't stand, it's when the attention isn't solely on him. So for those reasons, I think that he is likely going to make this announcement tonight. I could be wrong. He could be, he could have pivoted. He could recognize that he's in such a position of weakness and that Herschel Walker is now in the runoff and he doesn't want to be an albatross on Walker's neck. I know a lot of Republicans in the space, a lot of Republican operatives and even Republican officials have called on him to stay out of the race. We can all see the writing on the wall. The guy is not popular. All of his candidates, again, lost. The Tudor Dixons of the world, the Carrie Lakes, Tim Michaels, all these Republican election deniers who basically espoused the America First agenda, they were repudiated at the ballot box. So there is a world in which, he not wanting to admit fault or admit defeat tonight says, oh, well, I already announced that I'm going to make this announcement, but I'm just going to make the announcement on whatever, 50% off gold coins with my face on it, whatever it is. You know what I mean? He's not going to cancel the event outright, but he can absolutely pretend that he never intended to announce his run for president tonight. He was always just going to announce that he was just doing a joint My Pillow sale tonight with Mike Lindell or whatever, he ultimately goes with. So we'll see what happens. Any way you cut it, though, here's what I think is going to happen. I think that he absolutely will run for president. I think that he doesn't want to be kingmaker. He wants to be king, literally and figuratively. So you can see, by the way, that he's attacking Ron. Speaking of, there we go. There's a prelude to what we're going to see tonight. I can't believe I'm even broadcasting this right now. In any case, pay no attention to the grifter in the corner of the screen trying to hawk bed sheets right now. I just don't want to turn off this feed because this is the feed we're going to use for the event, for the announcement tonight. So, with that said, let's talk for a moment because we have a little while until this announcement goes on, and frankly, there's only so much opining about Donald Trump that I can do before I start to lose my mind. Let's talk about midterms a little bit. So just to give an indication of where we're at on midterms, right now, I believe today is when it was announced that the Democrats will not be able to hold on to a majority in the House, which is what we expected. I anticipate that we'll probably lose the House somewhere in the ballpark of 215 or 216 to 219 or 220 to Republicans. So it'll be a razor-thin majority. While Democrats won't have been able to hold on to the House, I think that the fact that they were able to stave off these Republican wins in so many districts and keep that flip so small is just about as good a repudiation of the Republican agenda that they ran on as you can possibly get. And so while we won't hold on to the House, I think that Republicans' mandate of, the Hunter Biden investigations and the Joe Biden impeachment and probes into litter boxes in elementary schools and just all the red meat bullshit for the base that they were all frothing at the mouth over, that they were going to move forward with if they were able to flip 30, 40, 50 seats like they had thought that they would do. I think that stuff is all gone. A lot of these races that they picked up, a lot of their majority is owed to the fact that they were able to flip seats in moderate districts in upstate New York, for example. If you think that those freshman lawmakers in upstate New York are gonna stake their entire careers on kowtowing to the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the party who want to investigate Hunter Biden because why the hell not? Because she wants to book another 5-minute cable hit on Hannity, then you're kidding yourselves. These people know that their victories are precarious, that they know that there was a bad showing in New York and there's a pretty bad showing in California too. And that these seats are by no means safe. They're in blue states. They were part of, the small faction of Republican waves that hit just a couple of states, Florida, New York, and possibly California. But that they're not safe. And if they go back to their districts at the end of all this, and all they have to show for themselves is that they move forward with some investigation just to get a high five from Marjorie Taylor Greene, their political careers aren't going to last too long. So I would be more predisposed to think that they do have some incentive to try to get something done. The good news on the flip side of that is Democrats were able to control the Senate. We have at least a 50 to 49 majority. Worst case scenario, if in the runoff that's coming up on December 6th, we lose that race, it'll be a 50-50 majority and we'll be in the same position that we are now. If we're able to win that race and keep Raphael Warnock in the Senate, and we have a 51-49 majority, then it's a game changer, at least in terms of confirming judges, which will be first, second, and third priority. Right now, because there's a sharing agreement in the Senate, what's required is something called discharge petitions. It takes an extra vote to get these people out of committee, which is deadlocked because of the breakdown of Democrats and Republicans right now, because they have the same breakdown. If we have a 51-49 Senate, there won't be the need for any discharge petitions. So we can move a lot faster in terms of confirming judges. There's a meme that I shared the other day, which is just like, I don't know if anybody's seen that meme of all the old people just sitting in a straight line at like some casino, just pushing buttons the whole time, just ding, ding, ding. And it's just a whole line of like 15 people. And somebody had written like, this will be the U.S. Senate confirming 30-year-old judges for the next 2 years of Biden's term. And that's right. I mean, that should be our first, second, and third priority right now. We have taken our eye off the ball when it comes to judges so much to the point where, I mean, I don't really have to explain why judges are important now, but I think people are recognizing at this point the extent to which the damage that Republicans have done by virtue of stacking the judiciary with young, uber conservative judges who are basically just, ruling by fiat and like becoming the exact activist judges that Republicans pretended to decry for all those years when they looked at Democratic judges, liberal judges, when in reality it's these conservative judges who are just completely reshaping the fabric of this country with massively not only unpopular, but also completely baseless rulings that really don't stand the test of logic or time or precedent. But they don't care about that. That's like so. So at this point, I think that all we have to do is just do what we can to stack the judiciary with as many liberal judges as is possible, and just take it from there, and try to undo some of the damage that's been done over the last couple of years by Trump and his predecessors, and just generally by Democrats not paying as much attention to the judiciary as we should have. So that's where we are in terms of the House and the Senate. Some good news that we got last night is that Katie Hobbs will be the next governor of Arizona. So that is great news. And what that does is round out the list of election deniers running for both governor and secretary of state. All of Trump's endorsed candidates, all of the election denying candidates, the big lie endorsing candidates have all lost their races. There is no election denier running for office as a Republican in any battleground state for governor or secretary of state who won their race. And that is a massive victory. Kari Lake was the very last one we were waiting on. They also lost Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania, Tim Michels, I believe, in Wisconsin, if I'm getting that correct, Tudor Dixon in Michigan, and there was a whole coup that was happening in Oregon where there was a spoiler candidate that was funded by Phil Knight, who is the creator of Nike, who supported Republicans, but then decided to throw a bunch of money behind this Democrat turned independent to try to screw over the Democrat, basically. We were able to overcome that. So Democrats have secured victories in Arizona, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Obviously, some tough losses in Nevada, where Sisolak lost, in Texas, where Beto lost, in Georgia, where Stacey Abrams lost, and those ones are going to be tough. And I do hope that those people, Stacey Abrams and Beto, do something moving forward with the party, because man, they are talents, and it would be such a shame to lose them from the party. I've interviewed Beto a number of times. I was able to interview Stacey Abrams just a few weeks ago, and they're talented. So we'll hope that we don't lose them, and that they'll do something worthwhile moving forward. So that's the deal with the gubernatorial races. Let's talk about Colorado's 3rd congressional district. That is the Lauren Boebert versus Adam Frisch race. Now, I interviewed Adam Frisch on this channel about a few days ago. I think it came out 2 days ago. That video is already at like 1.7 million views. If you follow this channel, you've likely seen that interview. Top lines on that interview and on the race more broadly. Right now, Adam Frisch is down against Lauren Boebert about 1,100 votes. According to Adam Frisch, there are between 3,000 and 5,000 votes still outstanding. A number of those are overseas or military ballots. A number of those are ballots that still need to be counted for any reason. There are still ballots that need to be cured in that race. So if you live in Colorado's 3rd congressional district, if you have friends or family or anyone you know in Colorado's 3rd congressional district, make sure that they follow the link. That link is everywhere. It's on my Twitter page. It's on the link. It's in the post description of my YouTube interview with Adam. To cure your ballot, there is an easy way to check if your ballot has been accepted or if there is an issue. When I say cure your ballot, it's just a slight issue that needs to be resolved. Maybe it's a signature that needs to be matched, a date that wasn't confirmed, something like that. Just a small issue that just needs to be rectified, and then they can count your ballot. There is a major operation going on right now among Democrats to reach out to every single person whose ballot wasn't accepted, to make sure that it is accepted, that it's rectified, that it's cured. So hopefully there are a number of ballots. He believes that there's about 1,000 ballots that need to be cured. It's difficult to tell which ones are Democratic and which ones are Republican, but you can reach out to people and just generally who you think are going to be Adam Frisch voters versus Lauren Boebert voters, and make sure that they have all the information that they need to be able to cure their ballot. So that's where we are in the Boebert-Frisch race. We should be getting more information at some point, either tomorrow, which is Wednesday, or Thursday. I believe that he wasn't sure. Adam wasn't sure in terms of the deadline, whether it would be like 5 p.m. or 11:59 p.m. But I believe tomorrow is the deadline for these last ballots to come in. So we'll either have information come in tomorrow, or more likely we'll have some information come in on Thursday in terms of who actually won that race. So if you don't follow this channel, please hit the subscribe button. I will be covering that race as soon as we have any information on it. So definitely hit the subscribe button. I'll do another live stream. The moment we have any news, any results, I'll be covering it. I've been like laser focused on that race in particular. So definitely subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so that you can be alerted when I go live, because I anticipate that the next live I'll be doing, and probably the last live for the election cycle, is going to be when we have results for the Frisch-Boebert race. So hit the subscribe button for that. People are asking also about Katie Porter's race. Katie Porter held about a 5,000 vote lead in her race. As of yesterday, that lead was cut in about half. So it looks like we have about a 2,500 vote lead out in that district in California. So we'll keep an eye on that. It's hard to say how these ballots that are being counted right now are going to break, because generally the later ballots are usually Democratic leaning. Mail ballots are Democratic leaning. But you can never be sure, and she had a 5,000 vote lead that was about cut in half yesterday. So, it's difficult to determine or to know in advance, to be able to predict how certain ballots are going to break. So I don't want to say that the next batch of ballots is going to be a sure thing for Katie Porter, but I can at least say that she's up about 2,500 votes as of right now. So that's where we are in the Katie Porter race. So I believe those are all. I believe those are all the major races that we've been following thus far. Overall, I would say a far more successful midterm cycle than I could have ever imagined. Yes, we will lose the House, but while we were pretty much bracing ourselves to lose the House by like 30 or 40 votes, it looks like Democrats are only going to be trailing about 3 seats in the House. So a super thin majority, and basically make it impossible for Kevin McCarthy to do anything, much less his sham investigations into Hunter and impeaching Biden and just all this like clown car circus BS. So I think that as far as the worst case scenario goes, we missed that by a mile, and this was definitely. And you can hear it by the way that these Republicans are speaking. We had Josh Hawley come out and basically discuss how the Republican Party, as we know it, is dead. There is no Republican Party right now. They have to rebuild. And the irony of someone like Josh Hawley saying that shouldn't be lost on us, because when you have someone like Josh Hawley come in and try to do a postmortem on the GOP and like frame himself or position himself on the person who's giving these hard truths and who needs to be there to like build the GOP back up into a winning party, it's him who got them there. Like it was Josh Hawley is like that meme where it's like, we're all trying to find the guy who did this, and he's standing there in a hot dog costume. Josh Hawley is what was rejected at the ballot box. We're talking about a guy who raised his fist in solidarity with the insurrectionists. Every election denier who subscribed to the big lie lost. And so if Josh Hawley is wondering why the GOP died, it's because we might want to look at someone like, Josh Hawley, who was peppering these insurrectionists, who was literally like cheering them on outside on that day, who was one of 2 people alongside Ted Cruz who validated this scheme to object to the election results, the free and fair election results, because they wanted this whole sham idea, sham notion that the election was stolen to continue within the Senate. He and Ted Cruz were the ones who were joining with a member of Congress, because you need 1 senator, 1 member of Congress to uphold an objection to the state's results. And even though those state's results were all valid and fair, and they weren't able to find any nefarious behavior, any fraud, these guys were still front and center in terms of making sure that they could object to the election results. They had no reason to do it. So in any case, subscribes to the big lie, validates the big lie, perpetuates the big lie. All the big lie endorsing candidates lost in midterms, and then this guy has the the spine to come forward and be the one that's going to like position himself as the future of the GOP. But like, with that said, we have people like Hawley who are out there trying to position himself as the leader. We have people like Ted Cruz who've also gone on TV and decried what happened as if he has no say in it, as if he had no responsibility in all of this when he was also on the campaign trail with all of these Republicans. I think he endorsed like 8 people, all 8 of them lost. So if the Republican Party wants to continue to allow those people, the Josh Hawleys of the party, the Ted Cruzes of the party, even the Romney McDaniels of the party, who just announced another run for RNC chair on her incredibly impressive credentials of having overseen like 3 elections now where Republicans have lost seats. If that's who they want to raise up in their party, when in fact it was the moderate Republicans who won, more power to them. I'm not going to be the one to tell these people not to do it. If they want to run the most losing candidates, if they want to continue to elevate just the extremists in their party, knowing full well that it's the extremists who lose these elections for them, hey man, your funeral. So that's my thoughts on these Republicans who still to this day continuously cannot get out of their own way. If they want to do that, then more power to them. For people just joining in, it looks like we're about 35 minutes away from the expected speech at Mar-a-Lago. I would anticipate that Donald Trump is going to announce that he's running for 2024. I explained this when I first started this stream. I think he's doing this right now, if he does it, because I can't say one way or the other, but I would imagine that if he's doing it just to, try to clear the field, because he's worried about the encroachment from someone like Ron DeSantis. And so he thinks that if he can get in now and try to suck up all the oxygen away from someone like Ron DeSantis and try to take the news cycle back to himself because of all the fawning coverage that DeSantis is getting, then he'll be able to do the number one thing that he wants to do, which is to make sure that all eyes are on him. That is his first, second, and third priority. He lives and breathes by how many eyes he can have glued to the screen when he's on it. The second thing is he'll likely be doing this so that he can try to use it as an excuse to pressure investigating entities to stop investigating him. So I mentioned before that he's contending right now with investigations from the DOJ regarding January 6th, the DOJ regarding the stolen documents at Mar-a-Lago, New York Attorney General's office with regard to the Trump Organization civilly and criminally. That's the Letitia James and the Alvin Bragg investigations, the Fulton County DA's investigation into requesting that Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in Georgia find 11,780 votes that didn't exist. So he's contending with a lot of investigations. He has a vested interest in trying to do whatever he can to try to pressure the people investigating him not to investigate him anymore. And so I'm sure that he thinks that if he announces his run for president, that'll mean that these investigating entities have no choice but to stop investigating him, because now he's a candidate for office. And so now he can pretend that he has this invisibility shield, this cloak of invisibility, where now any investigation would be an effort to discredit a Republican candidate, and you can't have that. And so these people have to stop investigating him, which is, of course, bullshit. These investigations were ongoing. Doesn't matter if Donald Trump is a candidate. We're supposed to be a country where no one is above the law. So just announcing that you're a candidate for office does not mean that you all of a sudden have invincibility as far as the law goes. He doesn't know that. Well, I'm sure he knows that, but he doesn't care about that. His supporters certainly don't know that. And so he's going to use this as his excuse, and his supporters will repeat it ad nauseum. But I think at the end of the day, that's the goal for him, is he always wants to win in the court of public opinion. And he knows if he can build up enough pressure, that he hopes that he can use that pressure, that leverage, to get what he wants. And that's worked for him thus far. I don't think it'll work for him here. So that's where we are in terms of why I believe he is doing this announcement. For people tuning in now, I believe it's going to happen in about a half hour or so. So stick around. you know, or don't. I mean, like, this isn't the biggest news in the entire world. If Donald Trump runs, then he's running. He's doing it from a position of extreme weakness. There has never been a more clear indication of just how much of a drag on the Republican ticket he is than right now. I mean, the idea that he would do this only days after he was so thoroughly and absolutely repudiated at the ballot box is almost laughable. It's not lost on anybody in either party. There's been a number of people in even the Republican ecosystem who were like, damn, this guy needs to like shut up for 5 minutes because we're trying to win a Georgia runoff. What was the harshest, I think, is having Kayleigh McEnany come forward and on Fox News and say she thinks that Donald Trump should stay out of Georgia, but not before saying that she believes that Ron DeSantis should go to Georgia. That's got to hurt. So I think I think that if anything, Donald Trump will have seen that, and that will have just pushed him more toward this idea of trying to announce right away, because he can see, the way that politics is like you either have the momentum or you don't. The only way to change that, to swing that momentum back to you, is to do something to swing it back to you. I think that's what he thinks he's going to do right now. He thinks that the answer to any problem is just putting himself in front of a camera, is just making himself the center of attention again. We saw it with like COVID and these press conferences that were one disaster after the next, and like a bigger disaster one day after the previous day, and that didn't stop him. He just continued to do it. He's like, it's that whole only I can fix it mentality. And so if he screws up one day, he's like, oh, I'll just fix it by, again, doing the exact same thing I did today, tomorrow. And so he's, this is a continuation of exactly that policy, that mentality, where he's like, well, people aren't paying attention to me because I broke this election, so I'll just fix it by offering the one thing that I think can solve everything, and that is me. So that's what we're seeing tonight, most likely. I think it will be a major abdication of a major admission of his weakness if he doesn't announce, because obviously everybody believes that he is going to announce. If he doesn't, then it's basically him conceding to the fact that he is weak, is a losing candidate, and doesn't have the same heat that Ron DeSantis has behind him. So we'll see what happens tonight. Again, I'm not going to pretend to know what he's going to say. I can only say that I believe he's going to announce his run for president. I think one way or the other, he will be announcing that he is going to run for president. Like I said before, I don't think the guy wants to be kingmaker. I think he wants to be king. He doesn't give a shit about any of these other candidates. That's why when he raises money for these people, he deigns to allow them to have 10% of what he brings in. I think that there was a campaign email that went out a few days ago where he claimed to be raising money for Herschel Walker down in Georgia. And when you click, I think this was Jeff Stein at the Washington Post who revealed this, but when you click and see the breakdown of where the money was actually going, it was 90 cents to Donald Trump and 10 cents to Herschel Walker. So this guy is purportedly raising money to save Herschel Walker's spot in, or to gain Herschel Walker's spot in the U.S. Senate from Georgia. And yet he's only deigning to allow him to have 10% while he takes 90%. This guy doesn't care about any other candidates. He's not a guy who gives a crap about the party. He cares about himself and only himself. The Republican Party he will keep just close enough so that he can use them to grift more money for himself. That's all he cares about. And worse than that, the only thing worse than that is the fact that these Republicans still don't recognize that. Let me see what's going on the video front. Let's see. Give me one quick sec. I think that they may have taken this video feed down. So let's see. Here we go. Okay. So, with that said, make sure everything's okay. Hey, let me know. I'm gonna lower my gain a little bit. Let me know if you can hear everything okay, or if there's any feedback on this feed. Just give me a thumbs up if the audio sounds okay, or if you need me to change anything with the audio. Okay, cool. Audio's good. Alrighty. So we are less than 30 minutes away. Thank you. I appreciate all the feedback here. So we are less than 30 minutes away. If you have questions right now, I'm happy to answer them while we continue to wait for this announcement, which I anticipate will be his announcement that he's running in 2024. Which is a bummer for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, and I know there's no audio from the video right now. I am holding off on the audio from the video. I'm going to do a quick audio check from that video just to make sure that we are good to go when it does happen.
Back to war and a condemnation of the consequences of the impact of...
So I assume that you could hear that just there, so I think we are good to go when this announcement does happen. Okay. Cool. Okay. Everything's good on the sound. We are 25 minutes away from this announcement now. Yes, if you would like to throw a question in there, I'm happy to answer questions while we wait. I did do a full rundown of what we saw from midterms, so I'm happy to do those again if that's what people want to hear. Just an update on. Someone said Brian Tyler camo. I've also been told that when I do this without a suit, it's no tie with Brian Tyler Cohen. So I think that's the official show name right now. Thank you for tuning in to No Tie with Brian Tyler Cohen. One thing I want to touch on is what happened in Poland. So as far as the information that we got, we've got so far, there were about 2 missiles that had landed in Poland from Russia. There was a convening of leaders in Poland and NATO leaders to figure out what to do. The way that I believe it's Article 5 works is that if you attack one NATO country, all NATO countries would then respond. That's the whole point, really, of NATO. So we'll see what happens there. We don't have any indication one way or the other of what's going to happen. That's obviously like a major escalation. So we'll see. But then again, the whole point of having NATO is that, if people are attacked in another country, in a NATO country, then you have like something of an obligation to retaliate. I believe that there were 2 Poles that died in Poland. So we'll see what happens on that front. Okay. Some folks are asking if I could slow the chat down. So let me try to figure out. Here we go. Okay. Slowed the chat down. So that should be better for you guys watching. Someone asked how uh, how Trump could run while he's dealing with all of these lawsuits. That's the thing. I mean, you can run. I mean, people can run from prison if they want to, but the way the lawsuits factor in, is not so much a reason that would prevent Donald Trump from running. In fact, in my opinion, the lawsuits are a cause for him to run. I mean, he's trying to use the cover of his impending run for president as a way to stave off these investigations, for basically him to be able to say, if you're investigating me while I'm a candidate, you're not investigating me. You're just trying to hurt Republicans' chances of taking office. So you're actually meddling in an election, and you couldn't possibly do that. And so you have no choice but to stop investigating me. That's his hope with all of this. In reality, obviously, that's complete BS. I wouldn't worry about any of these entities who are investigating him being like, oh well, that's it. He's running for president. I guess our hands are tied. They're either going to move forward or they're not. They're either going to indict him or they're not. But I don't think at this point, with how far these investigations have gone thus far, I mean, we're 2 years into most of these investigations. No one's just going to pack it up and go home just because he announced his run for president as if it's this huge surprise. But that would be the only reason that I would imagine him announcing so early, because remember, by virtue of him announcing today, if that's what he does, he won't be able to raise money for his PAC anymore, because there's rules that you have to abide by in terms of raising money when you're officially a candidate. But then, of course, there's also the reason that I think he's trying to retain some of the attention that's defecting to the Ron DeSantis movement of the party, and I think he just can't have that happen. Okay. Let's see if I can get more questions here. Someone asked, when will he speak? I believe that we're going to have that announcement in about 20 minutes. What does Democrats losing the House mean for the January 6th committee? I think it means that it'll be the end of the January 6th committee. I anticipate that we'll see some final report issued in the next month. So we do have that to look forward to. They'll possibly do another committee hearing, in which case I will cover that as well. So if you aren't yet subscribed to this channel, definitely subscribe, because I'll do live streams of big events just like that. I covered every other January 6th committee hearing before this. I've also gotten interviews with members of the January 6th committee. I've spoken to Jamie Raskin about it, Adam Schiff, and I've spoken to Adam Kinzinger, and I'm hoping to get an interview with Liz Cheney. I think it's hopefully more likely now that she's kind of freed from the grips of, both running for re-election because she lost her seat, and when this committee is finally disbanded, when Republicans take over, I think that, when they do their final report, then she'll be more available to actually speak and speak more freely. Okay, someone had asked what the threshold for a recount is in California. Let's see. I believe it's half a point would be an automatic recount, but let me find out exactly what that is. So in California, there are no automatic recounts for the state. They can be made within 5 days of it's paid for by the requester. The costs paid by the requester are refunded if the recount changes the election outcome. If the outcome does not change, the requester can't recoup that cost. So I believe that they'll be able to request a recount, but I don't think state law in California doesn't require an automatic recount. So that's the deal with the Katie Porter race right now. We're still waiting on the results from that race. I think every evening we do get some type of result, some type of dump of ballots. Solely to get the person who is asking whether I like sliced ham or sliced turkey more to stop writing sliced ham or sliced turkey, I will say sliced turkey. But under the condition that you stop writing that in the chat. Okay, so does 51 senators mean anything for the filibuster? No, the filibuster, 51 senators won't mean anything for the filibuster. The reason being that you need a majority of senators, 50 senators, to overturn the filibuster. We needed 52 because we know we have two Democratic senators, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who are not willing to eliminate the filibuster. And so the 52 was the arbitrary number for us just because we needed 50 and to be able to make that rule so that we would be able to operate on a simple majority in the Senate. 52 would replace those no votes for Manchin and Sinema. We're not going to get that. So in terms of the filibuster being eliminated, that's likely not going to happen right now. It wouldn't matter anyway because at this point, because we didn't keep the House, you need legislation to pass both the House and the Senate to get signed into law. So even if we were able to get 52 senators, because we weren't able to keep the House, there's not going to be any legislation. Remember, the Congress will start new. So if we wanted a law codifying Roe, it has to start in the House, or it could start in the Senate, and then they reconcile the House and Senate versions. But generally, a law starts in the House, it goes to the Senate. The House only needs a simple majority to pass it. The Senate needs 60 votes. If we eliminate the filibuster, then the Senate could pass that legislation with a simple majority. So 50 votes or 51 votes. 50 votes if you have the tiebreaker as the vice president. But we don't have the House anyway, so at this point it's really moot. But we still do want to gain that 51st senator in Raphael Warnock for two reasons. One, it gives us a bigger buffer heading into 2024 where we have a brutal Senate map. We have not a great Senate map at all. We have people running for re-election in we have Joe Manchin running for re-election in West Virginia. We have Tim Kaine running for re-election in Virginia. We're defending seats in Nevada. We're defending a seat in Arizona. Nevada is Jackie Rosen. Arizona is going to be Kyrsten Sinema, who I anticipate we will be primarying with someone like Ruben Gallego. We just got an update for Katie Porter. This was just this second. Orange County updated 12,087 additional votes in California's 47th. They break 53.5 to 46.5 in Katie Porter's favor. So that nets her an additional 881 votes. She now leads by 3,772 votes. That is good news. Yesterday's vote dump cut her lead in half. So this one separates her even further from her Republican opponent, Scott Baugh. So right now that race is 50.8% Katie Porter to 49.2% for Scott Baugh. So she's up, again, 3,700 votes, almost 3,800 votes. So good news for Katie Porter. That just happened right now. I knew that we get collection of votes that come in every evening from California. So that was this California. That was this result right now. Let's see if we have any other update. There is another update. Adam Gray, who's running in California's 13th congressional district, that's the Democrat. He continues to lead 50.2 to 49.8. So he's up all of 415 votes. So a tight race there, but Democrat Adam Gray continues to lead in California's 13th congressional district. So that's where we are. That's where we are right now. So that's some good news for people wondering about Katie Porter, who continues to be locked in a tight race. But having her up 3,700 votes is objectively some good news here. We're less than 15 minutes away. Someone had asked why I'm doing this video, why I'm covering him. And this is something that I wrestled with in terms of like, do I want to do this video? He has a lot of unearned media. Here's why I ultimately decided to do this. I think that at the end of the day, something that we've learned from this latest midterm cycle is that Donald Trump doesn't necessarily help the Republican Party in the same way that he used to help the Republican Party, in the same way that he was like, their silver bullet. I think at this point, if you look at the candidates that he endorsed and went to bat for in gubernatorial races and Secretary of State races across the country in those battleground states during this midterm cycle, and if you consider the fact that every single one of them lost, in fact, the only election denier that won a Secretary of State race, I believe, was in Indiana and possibly Wyoming. I can't remember exactly, but otherwise, everyone from Kari Lake to Lee Zeldin, Karamo, Tim Michaels, Doug Mastriano, all of them were completely repudiated at the ballot box, completely denied at the ballot box, and so there is a part of me that watches this and is like, look, we've seen the consequences for Republicans for making Donald Trump continue to be their number one, like the guy who they stake their entire fortunes on. And we just a few days ago, like we have the benefit of hindsight of just like the last 72 hours where we can see just how not only weak, but how much of an albatross he is around Republicans' necks, how detrimental, how actively bad he is for that party. Not even just like a net neutral, but a net negative for that party. And so if he wants to continue to make himself the spectacle, the thing that the entire Republican Party is predicated on the right, then I'd say more power to him, because we know we have like definitive proof now of how Americans react when a Donald Trump, when someone espousing the MAGA agenda, the America First agenda, is on the ballot. Like, we know now that there is a majority of Americans who identify as Democrat, Independent, and Republican, who make up this pro-majority coalition that continues to deny these MAGA candidates. They did it in 2020 when he lost by 7 million votes and ran behind all of these Republicans who were also on the ballot. Remember, Republicans did relatively well compared to him in 2020. He did it again now in 2022, where he had all of these people espousing Trumpism on the ballot, and they all lost. Like, if Republicans want to continue to put these people on the ballot, continue to make their whole agenda about like election denialism and cruelty and everything else that Donald Trump espouses, and continue to lose and yet not change anything, then I don't necessarily think that hurts the Democrats. And so I like went back and forth in terms of whether I thought it was a good idea to do this. And like a lot of the people that I criticized in 2016 were the people that were like hanging on Donald Trump's every word. I don't think that I'm doing that. I've made a really concerted effort over these last couple of years to cover the entirety of the Republican Party and definitely not make myself just somebody who hangs on to the every word of Donald Trump. And if he like utters something from wherever he is on some golf course somewhere, then I'm going to cover it. I've covered it relatively few times, but I think in this instance, when we've been given such a clear indication of how unpopular he is and how much Americans do not support his agenda, if he wants to come back just ahead of the Georgia runoff, when we've watched all of these MAGA candidates lose at the ballot box, if he wants to come back and make himself the face of that party and make this another referendum on Trumpism, then like more power to him. I'm happy to make sure that people know that because they've rejected him once in 2020. They rejected him in states across this country again in 2022. And if they want to do it at the December runoff on December 6th, then I'll make sure that they know what this is a referendum of. I should note, too, that Donald Trump leans on this idea that he, I think somebody had written it in the chat, that he had endorsed 126 candidates. Just by virtue of endorsing every single Republican in office does not like help your record. He keeps saying, "Oh, well, my record is great." I mean, yeah, if you endorse every single Republican, chances are the vast majority of your endorsements are going to win, because that's just how it works. Like, if I endorsed every Democrat, except and lost all of the races that were close, but endorsed the rest of the Democrats, chances are I'd have a pretty good endorsement record. Nobody cares the fact that you endorsed Kevin McCarthy in his California district. Nobody cares that you endorsed Matt Gaetz in Florida's first congressional district or whatever it was. These people winning is not some like major reflection of your endorsement prowess. It's just because they've won their races. They're incumbents. It's not exactly it's not exactly some major victory for you that these people who are already incumbent candidates or have been incumbent candidates for years are winning their elections, especially in deep red districts. So I think just focus on, the candidates who he actually stuck his neck out for and the candidates in the races that were actually toss-ups and battleground races. And those are the ones that he generally lost, I think with the exception of of J.D. Vance in Ohio. But otherwise, you look at someone like Doug Mastriano, who was just a spitting image of Trump, Kari Lake, who was as close to Donald Trump as you can get. These people were just soundly rejected at the ballot box. I'm going to go split screen here. And I think we're just a few minutes away. I'm going to cover the Boebert race in just one quick sec. Let me just see if we...
Well, who's in the room there, do you think? Members of...
Okay, so still just Fox hosts, talking about this. It doesn't really matter. Just a quick update on the Boebert race for people who are just joining right now. First of all, I would highly recommend that you watch my interview with Adam Frisch on this channel. It's in the interviews playlist. It's one of the most recent interviews that I posted. It's got like a little over 1.6 million views. So he explains everything that's happening in that race right now. It still holds up perfectly, even though it's from 2 days ago. Basically, what's happening in that race is that Lauren Boebert is leading Adam Frisch by about 1,100 votes. They are, as far as Adam is concerned, there are between 3,000 and 5,000 ballots still outstanding. A number of them are overseas ballots or military ballots. A number of them are ballots that just for one reason or another haven't been counted yet. He believes that there's about 1,000 ballots that still need to be cured. So again, if you know anybody who lives in Colorado's 3rd Congressional District or know anybody who knows somebody who lives in Colorado's 3rd Congressional District, definitely suggest that they cure their ballot or they check that their ballot was accepted. I have links all over my Twitter to cure that ballot. I have links in the post description of that interview to cure that ballot. So again, if you know somebody, these margins are tight and every ballot measure, every ballot rather, matters. So definitely do what you can to help that out. So that's what's happening in the Boebert Frisch race. She's up by about 1,100 votes. And we expect that there's between 3,000 and 5,000 votes still outstanding. We should get those results from those outstanding ballots, I believe, tomorrow, which is Wednesday. When I spoke to Adam, he wasn't sure if it was 5 p.m. or 11:59 p.m. So I would anticipate that if we don't get results tomorrow, that we'll probably see something come in, some answer come in on Thursday. As soon as we have new information on that Boebert Frisch race, as soon as we have information on Colorado's 3rd Congressional District, I will be doing a live stream. So if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, definitely hit the subscribe button. You will get an update as soon as we have one on Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. That'll be top of mind for me. So hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. It's totally free, but that's the best way to find out about that Lauren Boebert race and also the best way to support what I do. So if you want to help me out and support my work, then just subscribing to the channel is all I would ask for. Okay, it looks like we are a couple of minutes away from this speech, which, again, for people just joining, I believe is coming from, if he announces, and I apologize for people who've heard this already, but if he announces, I believe this is coming from a position of extreme weakness. This is Donald Trump reeling over the coverage of Ron DeSantis, the fawning coverage of Ron DeSantis. Again, for anybody who watched that Fox News clip of Kayleigh McEnany basically saying that Donald Trump should stay away from Georgia, but not before saying that Ron DeSantis should go to Georgia, that shit's got to hurt. for Donald Trump. There is nothing that he likes less than being considered the loser here, and that's what everybody's making perfectly clear is what the case is. So there's that. He's trying to regain a lot of the oxygen that has gone out of the room or gone toward Ron DeSantis, and trying to recapture it for himself. Because as we all know, if there is one thing that Trump does, it's to make sure that he has all the attention trained on him. The other reason is because he's contending with all of these investigations. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the guy thinks that to try to stave off these investigations by the Fulton County DA, by Alvin Bragg in New York on the Trump org, the criminal investigation, by Letitia James, the civil probe into Trump org, the DOJ's case into the Mar-a-Lago stolen documents, the DOJ's case into January 6th, by virtue of trying to stave off all of those investigations, I think he thinks that if he can say, oh, well, I'm running for president, now you can't investigate me, because any investigation would be an effort to meddle in this election by hurting the presumptive Republican nominee, which is, of course, on its face, pretty tenuous. But I don't think he cares, and I know that he thinks he can manipulate his supporters into believing that that's actually the case, that any investigations into him are just an effort by the deep state Democrats to take him down. And they'll repeat all that stuff verbatim because he says it. But in any case, I don't think that it's going to have any huge impact to stop any of these investigating entities from indicting him or continuing their investigation into him. Okay, looks like we are moments away here. I think something interesting that happened today is Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz came forward and said that he was gonna be at this Trump event tonight, but that there was a problem with the weather. He doesn't think he's going to make it because of the weather. And then I checked the weather in D.C., where he would have had to catch a plane down to Palm Beach, Florida, and it was drizzling. And I'm not sure if planes work when it's drizzling, but I seem to remember flying in drizzling rain in the past. But in any case.
But Biden's the guy that beat him before.
All right. Still nothing worth listening to over there. So we will hold off. I believe we are moments away now. It is 5:59 Pacific, 8:59 Eastern. Again, this is happening on the heels of a major repudiation of Trump and of Republicans in this midterm election cycle. Democrats are going to not only hold onto their Senate majority, but hopefully and possibly expand their Senate majority by one seat. A lot of people have been asking, what's the benefit of 51 seats versus 50? And it's twofold. One, right now, because there's a sharing agreement in the Senate, because there's a 50-50 split between Democrats and Republicans. When a judicial nominee, for example, is deadlocked in a committee, they need something called a discharge petition. So that takes another vote. If we have a 51-49 majority in the Senate, we won't need these discharge petitions anymore to confirm judicial nominees. So that is something that will make these judicial confirmations move a lot faster, which is a good thing, especially since having lost the House, one of, if not the main priority for Democrats is going to be confirming as many 35-year-old judges as we possibly can to sit on the judiciary for their entire lives, the next 60 years. So that's going to be a huge priority of this Congress right now and this administration. The other reason that 51-49 is more important than 50-50 right now is because the Senate map for Democrats is pretty devastating. It's pretty brutal. So I would expect that we're going to have, we're going to be, I believe there's 33 Senate seats up for grabs. Democrats are defending 23 of them, and they're defending them in states like West Virginia, in states like Virginia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, so and even Montana, where John Tester is running for office. So it's going to be a tough map. Okay, I believe we'll have sound now. So Donald Trump is walking in now. To definitely not cult music, that's for sure.
Gentlemen, please welcome the next President and First Lady of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump, accompanied by Mrs. Melania Trump.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least
I would ask too, before I turn the sound fully up and go to the speech, if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, that is the best way to support what I do. I'll continue to do these live streams, but the best way to support my work so that I can continue doing these live streams is to subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, but it's a huge help to me, so thank you. This shit is so corny.
who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Well, thank you very much, Melania, myself, and our entire family. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's a very special occasion at a very special place. You and all of those watching are the heart and soul of this incredible movement and the greatest country in the history of the world. It's very simple. There has never been anything like it. This great movement of ours, never been anything like it, and perhaps there will never be anything like it again. There's never been anything to compete with what we've
Just
all done.
just words. Words to say words.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and my fellow citizens, America's comeback starts right now. Two years ago, when I left office, the United States stood ready for its golden age. Our nation was at the pinnacle of power, prosperity, and prestige, towering above all rivals, vanquishing all enemies, and striding into the future, confident and so strong. In 4 short years, everybody was doing great. Men, women, African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans. Everybody was thriving like never before.
Left office with double the unemployment rate as when he came in.
There was never a time like this. We turned the page on decades of globalist sellouts and one-sided trade deals, lifted millions out of poverty, and together we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. When the virus hit our shores, I took
lost 3 million
action and
jobs.
saved lives and the U.S. economy. And by October of the same year, America was roaring back with the #1 fastest economic recovery ever recorded. How about that?
Had the worst jobs record in modern American history.
And all they had to do was just sit back and watch. Inflation was non-existent. Our southern border was by far the strongest ever. And because the border was so tight, drugs were coming into our country at the lowest level in many, many years. Importantly, after decades of rising energy costs, the United States had finally attained the impossible dream of American energy independence, which soon would have turned into energy dominance.
Biden's producing more oil than we produced under Trump.
For the first time in memory, China was reeling and back on its heels. You've never seen that before, because the United States was outdoing them on every single front, and China was paying billions and billions of dollars in taxes and tariffs. The farmers know that because they got 28 billion of it. No president had ever sought or received $1 for our country from China until I came along, and we were getting hundreds of billions of dollars. Many people think that because of this, China played a very active role in the 2020 election. Just saying, just saying.
Oh, here we go. Bamboo
Sure, that
fibers.
didn't happen. Instead of jobs and factories leaving America for China, they were, for the first time ever, leaving China for America. Businesses were pouring back because of our historic tax and regulation cuts, the biggest in both categories in history, bigger even than what Ronald Reagan was able to produce, and he produced a lot. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea were in check and respected. They respected the United States, and quite honestly, they respected me. I knew them well. I knew them well. The vicious ISIS caliphate, which no president was able to conquer, was decimated by me and our great warriors in less than 3 weeks, and al-Baghdadi, its founder, was hunted down and killed. North Korea had not launched a single long-range missile since my summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un nearly 3 years before. We developed a relationship, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Very good thing, actually, because look at what's happening today. My opponents made me out to be a warmonger and just a terrible person who would immediately go into war. They said during the 2016 campaign that if he becomes president, there will never be a war within weeks, and we will have wars like you've never seen before. It will happen immediately, and yet I've gone decades without a war, the first president to do it for that long a period. The world was at peace.
Biden's doing it right now.
Was prospering, and our country was on track for an amazing future because I made big promises to the American people, and unlike other presidents, I kept my promises. I kept them.
Yeah, just look at that wall that Mexico paid for. Just look at all those jobs that were added. Just look at that low unemployment rate that he left office with. Just look at those manufacturing jobs that came back. Just look at how he saved coal.
Thank you very much. Under our leadership, we were a great and glorious nation, something you haven't heard for quite a long period of time. We were a strong nation, and importantly, we were a free nation. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair. As we speak, inflation is the highest in over 50 years. Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher now that the strategic national reserves, which I filled up, have been virtually drained in order to keep gasoline prices lower just prior to the election.
Gasoline prices are down about $1.50 in the last few months.
Energy independence. There is no longer even a thought of dominance, and we are now begging for energy help from foreign nations, many of whom find us detestable.
We produce more oil under Biden than we did during Trump.
The country is being invaded by
Something to
millions
remember.
and millions of unknown people, many of whom are entering for a very bad and sinister reason. And you know what that reason is. We will be paying a big price for this invasion into our country for years to come. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of deadly drugs, including very lethal fentanyl, are flooding across the now open and totally porous southern border.
What's crazy is they did this all for the campaign, the whole rainbow fentanyl thing, and it didn't work in the campaign, but I don't think he knows the campaign is over.
As leadership of other countries explained that this is what America and democracy is really all about. How sad. The United States has been embarrassed, humiliated, and weakened for all to see. The disasters in Afghanistan, perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, where we lost lives, left Americans behind, and surrendered $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world. And Ukraine, which would have never happened if I were your president, are something and even the Democrats admit that. That's something I've seen them admit over and over again. But our enemies are speaking of us with scorn and laughter and derision because of those two events. But there are many more. Even just today, a missile was sent in, probably by Russia, to Poland, 50 miles into Poland.
They don't know that yet.
People are going absolutely wild and crazy, and they're not happy. They are very, very angry. Now
Biden just made an announcement that he doesn't believe it was Russia.
Global conferences was held in contempt by the British Parliament over Afghanistan. Thanks to the words of wisdom, he said thank you to the wrong country for inviting him to a major summit on the environment of all things. They fly for days to get there, and then he calls the country a name that was actually a country on another continent. And he's leading us to the brink of nuclear war, a concept unimaginable just 2 short years ago. You cannot mention the nuclear word. It's too devastating. The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years, is all that is talked about. And yet nuclear weapons, which would destroy the world immediately, are never even discussed as a major threat. Can you imagine?
Yes, because no one's dealing with the effects of climate change, famously.
1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years. But don't worry about nuclear weapons that can take out entire countries with one shot. Something is wrong with their thinking. Under Biden and the radical Democrats, America has been mocked, derided, and brought to its knees, perhaps like never before. But we are here tonight to declare that it does not have to be this way. It does not have to be this way. 2 years ago, we were a great nation, and soon we will be a great nation again. The decline of America is being forced upon us by Biden and the radical left lunatics running our government right into the ground. This decline is not a fate we must accept. When given the choice, boldly, clearly, and directly, I believe the American people will overwhelmingly reject the left's platform of national ruin, and they will embrace our platform of national greatness and glory.
Democrats just won more seats in the Senate. They just expanded their majority, and Republicans got crushed at the ballot box in what should have been a wave of election.
Ago, our citizens voted in the important midterm elections, and despite a ridiculously long and unnecessary period of waiting, far longer, in fact, than any third world country, just a short time ago, the Republicans won back control of the House of Representatives.
Yeah. They'll have a 3-vote margin. Big red wave election. 50-seat margin was reduced down to 3.
Candidate Congressman-elect Kevin Kiley, who is a fantastic person. And I'm very happy it was his vote that did it. But we now won back. This happened just an hour ago. Much criticism is being placed on the fact that the Republican Party should have done better, and frankly, much of this blame is correct. But the citizens of our country have not yet realized the full extent and gravity of the pain our nation is going through, and the total effect of the suffering is just starting to take hold. They don't quite feel it yet, but they will very soon. I have no doubt that by 2024, it will sadly be much worse, and they will see much more clearly what happened and what is happening to our country.
Gas prices are going down. Inflation was only at 0.2% this month. That's an annualized rate of 2.4%. But sure, it's going to get worse. Got it.
Are you getting ready? And I am too. I do want to point out that in the midterms, my endorsement success rate was 232 wins and only 22 losses. You don't hear that.
The only ones that mattered were the ones that lost. He counts he endorses everybody on the right and then points to them as some points of major victory.
News media. So we're going to keep it very elegant. But you don't hear that from the media. But I think you will, because people are starting to see what happened. That's some score. And in the primaries was 98.6%. But they were still trying to blame me. And the reason for the success and that unprecedented success rate is that the Trump administration changed our nation on trade, on securing the border. We're the strongest, safest border ever in the history of our country. On Islamic terrorism, we had practically, just about, not that I can think of, no Islamic attacks, terrorist attacks during the Trump administration. And in fact, we got along very well with the various countries, including coming up with the Abraham Accords. That's a great thing, the Abraham Accords.
Remember, Trump struck a deal with OPEC so that they could lower the cost of gas so that OPEC would make more money. The oil companies would make more money.
Anytime in the history of the world, there's never been an economy like we had just 2 years ago. Despite the outcome in the Senate, we cannot lose hope. And we must all work very hard for a gentleman and a great person named Herschel Walker, a fabulous human being who loves our country and will be a great United States Senator. Herschel Walker, get out and vote for Herschel, and he deserves it. He was an incredible athlete. He'll be an even better senator. Get out and vote for Herschel Walker. We elected a group of incredibly talented America First leaders who will be stars of our party for many years to come. In the popular vote, another thing that's not discussed for the House, we must remember that Republicans won 5 million more votes, the largest margin in many, many years, over the Democrats. 5 million more votes, that's a big thing. Breaking the radical Democrats' grip on Congress.
It's funny that he thinks 5 million votes is a big thing when he lost by 7 million votes in his election.
Great congressmen and all of our great congressmen and congresswomen, we have taken over Congress. Nancy Pelosi has been fired. Isn't that nice? I told them, I said, if you just keep a little bit lower standard, you're going to have a big victory. They said, let's win by 40 seats. Let's win by 50. I said, if you win by 2 seats, be happy. But she's on her way to another country right now. She's been fired. But we always have known that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. And it's a word you don't use, 2 words. I don't want to be Joe. It's 2 words, American dream. That was not good what he did. There are a lot of bad things, like going to Idaho and saying, welcome to the state of Florida. I really love it. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. All of you. Thank you. Thank you. So many incredible friends and family here tonight. It's such a beautiful thing. Some people say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy, if you want to know the truth. It really is. You ought to try it sometime. Together we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. This is a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time. If you look at the numbers, if you look at what's happened with Hispanic, with African American, with Asian, and just look at what's happening. This is a party that has become much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful, can do much more good for our country. This is a job for grandmothers and construction workers, firefighters, builders, teachers, doctors, and farmers who cannot stay quiet any longer. You can't stay quiet any longer. You're angry about what's happening to our country. Our country is being destroyed before your very eyes. It's a job for every aspiring young person and every hard-working parent, for every entrepreneur and underappreciated police officer who is ready to shout for safety in America. The police are being treated so badly. These are great.
Remember, all those Republicans just ran on a platform of crime, 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 and all just did pretty poorly in the midterms.
This will not be my campaign. This will be our campaign all together.
Ah, yes. Donald Trump, famously a man of the people, famously, whose biggest legislative achievement was a tax cut for millionaires and
because the
billionaires.
only force strong enough to defeat the massive corruption we are up against is you, the American people. It's true. The American people, the greatest people on earth, we love them all. And we love both sides. We're going to bring people together. We're going to unify people. And it was happening in the previous administration, previous to the previous. And what was bringing them together was success. Prior to COVID coming in, the people were calling me, that were calling me. You wouldn't believe it. People that were so far left, I figured they'd never speak to me and I would never speak to them. But our success was so incredible, like never before. And then COVID started coming in from China. We call it the China virus. Some people call it other things. But it was devastating, and we built it back and did an incredible job. But when people say Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives, I say we can all get together. And we were doing that. That was happening just prior, because the success was greater than this country has ever had. We were leapfrogging China and leapfrogging everybody else, and everybody wanted a piece of it. But just as I promised in 2016, I am your voice. I am your voice.
Yes, the racist billionaire who's only looking out for millionaires and billionaires in tax cuts is your voice.
Not let them do that. What we have built together over the past 6 years is the greatest movement in history, because it is not about politics. It's about our love for this great country, America, and we're not going to let it fail. I am running because I believe the world has not yet seen the true glory of what this nation can be. We have not reached that pinnacle, believe it or not. In fact, we can go very far. We're going to have to go far. First, we have to get out of this ditch. And once we're out, you'll see things that nobody imagined.
This ditch, we've just added 10 million jobs. It's the fastest recovery in American history. The unemployment rate is at a 50-year low.
We are Americans, and we do not have...
We've added 700,000 manufacturing jobs. Donald Trump lost, I think, 250,000 in his term.
Our country, our government, and the corridors of power, or they're our corridors. They're not their corridors. These are our corridors. And we are coming to take those corridors back. So from now until Election Day in 2024, which will come very quickly, we'll go, look at how time flies, look how fast it's all going. I will fight like no one has ever fought before. We will defeat the radical left Democrats that are trying to destroy our country from within, and likewise protect us all. We want to protect us. We have to be protected from all of those nations out there that are looking to destroy us from beyond our shores. There are lots of nations that hate us gravely. And that's the problem. When they look at us in disarray like we are right now, when we go to them begging for oil and we have more liquid gold under our feet than they have or any other nation has.
More oil is produced under Biden than was produced under Trump.
It's crazy what's happening. We can't let it continue. Joe Biden is the face of left-wing failure and Washington corruption. He had a big G20 dinner tonight. Everybody flew over to wherever they flew over, and guess what? He never showed up. They're still looking for him. What's going on? G20, I used to love that, the leaders. I used to make deals for our country like you wouldn't believe. It was one, give me the next one, give me the next one. And we got them to stop taking advantage of our country. Every nation took advantage of our country. We renegotiated deals with Mexico and Canada, USMCA. We got rid of the worst trade deal ever made. NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made. That's why the farmers love Trump, because we did a great job, but manufacturers also. And we did a deal, we restructured our terrible deal with Japan, and I did it with Prime Minister Abe, a great man who unfortunately is so sad. He was a great friend of mine, but a great man, loved his country so much, but we restructured and made it a really terrific deal, and with South Korea and so many other countries. And the best of all was what we did to China. We made an incredible deal, but after COVID, I don't even bother talking about it because the devastation that caused for the entire world was too much to bear. I will ensure that Joe Biden does not receive 4 more years in 2020. Can't do it.
A reminder that Donald Trump lost by 7 million votes the last time he ran against Biden.
Could not take that. And I say that not in laughter. I say that in tears. Our country could not take 4 more years. It can only take so.
Right. We've gained 10 million jobs, cut the unemployment rate in half, allowed the government to negotiate lower drug prices, finally did Infrastructure Week, passed the first gun bill in 30 years.
By a lot. And we will do it again, but with even more votes this time. Many have noted that huge gains we have made with Latino voters, and I believe we will set even greater records with this crucial vote in 2024. The Hispanic voter, the Latino voter has been unbelievable. Great people, very entrepreneurial people, and they want security. And everyone thought when I did the wall, I built the wall, and they thought, oh, that would hurt me with the Hispanic vote. No, it helped me because they understood. They wanted safety. They wanted security. And they understood the border better than anybody else. So they were amazed. We started that trend, and now we're continuing with that trend. You look at what we've done in Florida, what everybody's doing now in Florida and Texas, along the border in Texas, won every single community. I won every single community. Governor of Texas called. Great gentleman, just got reelected. And he said to me, I'd like to talk to you for a second. Well, he said, you've done something that nobody else has done. You've won every single area along the border. It's the longest since Reconstruction. I said, Reconstruction? I guess you call that the Civil War? That's what I call it? That's what I call it. Governor Abbott,
What?
very good man, and he's working hard. But it's
Reconstruction isn't the Civil War.
sending hundreds
What?
of thousands of people right through his state, right through Arizona, right through all of the states. What's happening is they're coming up all of the states. And we can't have it anymore. This campaign will be about issues, vision, and success. And we will not stop. We will not quit until we've achieved the highest goals and made our country greater than it has ever been before. And we can do that. We can do it. Our victory will be built upon big ideas, bold ambitions, and daring dreams for America's future. We need daring dreams. It is not enough merely to complain or oppose. We don't want to be critics. We don't want to be complainers. I never wanted to be a critic. I never respected critics. They tell people what's wrong, but they can't do it themselves. We will win because we will fight with every measure of our strength and with every ounce of our energy to lift up the working men and working women of America and to restore the fabric of this nation. The radical left Democrats have embraced an extreme ideology of government domination and control. Our approach is the opposite, one based on freedom, values, individual responsibility, and just plain common sense. It's common sense.
All right. It's time to wrap this up. This is just a stream of consciousness about
In 2
nothing.
years, the
It's
Biden
greatest hits.
administration has destroyed the U.S. economy. Just destroyed it.
He's added 10 million jobs.
Build the greatest economy ever.
Donald Trump left office with a double the unemployment rate than what he came in with, and he lost 2.9 million jobs in his term. It was the worst jobs performance of any president in modern American history.
Before COVID, and then handed off something where the stock market was higher than just prior to COVID coming in. And we did it twice, and we will do it again, but this time we'll do it bigger, stronger, better than anybody can even imagine. And one of the beautiful things of the pause, if there is such a thing as a beautiful thing, but one of the important factors of the pause is that we see how bad they've done. So we will be able to do it properly, and it will be much easier. Everybody will agree with us because everybody sees what a bad job has been done during this 2-year period, and it will be a 4-year period. Everybody sees that. It will be much easier for us to do what has to be done. We will immediately tackle inflation and bring down to a level that it was. We were at 0, but actually the best number is
First of all, there's inflation in every country in the world. The UK has 11% inflation. Just this month, the US had 0.2% inflation. Inflation's going down anyway. That's an annualized rate of 2.4%.
Don't have it zero. Have it like at 1%. They even say 1 to 2, but I said, let's do 1. And we had it at 1%, and we had it there for a long period of time, and we had the value of the dollar. We had it so that this country could make a lot of money, and I fought other countries where they devalued their dollar, or they devalued their currency, whether it was the pound or whether it was the yuan or the yen. And I used to fight like cats and dogs with the leaders of other countries because they were stealing from us. When they did that, they had artificial devaluations of their currency. It's a very important thing. I haven't even heard it mentioned in 2 years. That's a very important thing. It's very hard for us to compete when they do that artificially. And they had to pay a big price when they did it. And they never really did it for very long. I said, we're not going to do business with you anymore as a country. And they believed me. And they let it go back up. Instead of putting America
I'm sorry.
last,
This is so boring. This is so boring.
And bravely, because I can't imagine saying, let's put America last. I think it takes courage. We will again put America first. Every policy. Thank you very much. We do love our country, isn't it? That's why we're here. I didn't need this. I had a very nice, easy life. This is something I didn't need.
He's under investigation by like 6 different entities, and he's trying to use this announcement as a way to stave off those investigations.
Every policy must be geared toward that which supports the American worker, the American family, and businesses, both large and small, and allows our country to compete with other nations on a very level playing field, which we never had until I came along and the Trump administration came along. And now we're losing it. They're moving back into China. They're moving back into these other countries.
Donald Trump lost 250,000 manufacturing jobs. Joe Biden's added 700,000 manufacturing jobs.
Much of which I've already completed, but now will even greatly enhance. Other countries should pay for the privilege of coming into the American marketplace. They have to pay to come into our country and make all of that money, take it away from us. And thanks to the Trump administration, still the best and the biggest country in the world is what we have. We have the best and the biggest. If you remember, for many years, you can look in your projection books, China was going to take over from us as the largest economy in the world in 2018 or 2019. I said, I don't like that timing. And I was with President Xi, who's now president for life. I call him king. He said, no, I'm not the king. I said, yes, you are the king. You're president for life. It's the same thing. But I said, President, you can't do these things. You can't. Remember, they had China 25. That means China was going to take over virtually the whole world economy by 25. I said, that's not a nice sign. I don't want that sign. They took it down. They took down the whole slogan. Probably will be coming back at some point in the near future. But I found it very insulting. I said, I find that very insulting. On day one, we will end Joe Biden's war on American energy. And you will see, when that happens, you will see energy costs come down. And because energy is so big and so important, you will see inflation dropping. You will see it come down. It's a thing of beauty. And you wouldn't think it's that complicated. Now, what has been complicated a little bit is what's happened to so many other things. I believe originally started by this energy disaster. We were $1.87 a gallon for gasoline, and now it's hitting $5, $6, $7, and even $8, and it's going to go really bad. That's also not true.
The national average is about $3.30.
And the many crippling regulations that it has spawned will be immediately terminated so that our country can again breathe and grow and thrive like it should.
He just wants to coddle fossil fuel companies so that we can entrench our reliance on the same oil that he's complaining about the prices for.
They were up for about a year. Remember, I sent to Angela Remember Angela? Do you remember Angela? Nobody's remembering her now.
He doesn't remember her last
Angela
name.
Merkel, I sent her
There we go.
a white
Needed some
flag
time.
of surrender. She said, but why do you send this to me, Donald? I said, Angela, I send it to you because this is a flag of surrender. You are getting 78% of your energy from Russia. And when that happens, history has proven that it's not good for Germany. Just take a look over the last 150.
So he's whining about getting oil from petrostates when that's where oil comes from in the world, other than the U.S. oil. And we produce more in the U.S. now under Biden than we did under Trump. But meanwhile, staving off any of the renewable energy revolution benefits that we would get.
Every week they open up another, and then they talk about all of the things that they do environmentally. They are watching us die with the Green New Deal, with our windmills and with our solar that doesn't have the power to fire up our great factories and our great plants. They are watching us die.
It's cheaper to produce renewable energy now than it is for these expensive fossil fuel energy, especially when you factor in the fact that we have to beg foreign dictators and petrostates for that.
Economic security. That is why we will launch an all-out campaign to eliminate America's dependence on China. We will bring our supply chains, which are a disaster right now. You can't get anything, and good luck getting a turkey for Thanksgiving. Number one, you won't get it, and if you do, you're going to pay 3 to 4 times more.
Literally no one will have trouble finding a turkey for
Our
Thanksgiving.
supply chains and manufacturing base back home, as we were strongly doing during the Trump administration, and we
Donald Trump lost 250,000 manufacturing jobs. Joe Biden added 700,000.
middle class and to America itself. Please. Yeah, please sit down. I feel so guilty having you stand. No. No, you've been standing for the whole event. I feel very guilty. I don't want that to happen. To every worker and family struggling to survive in the Biden economy with inflation destroying your family and your life, this campaign will be for you. Help is on the way. Joe Biden has abolished America's borders. We are going to restore and secure America's borders just like we had them before, best ever. We built the wall. And now we will add to it. Now, we built the wall, we completed the wall, and then we said, let's do more, and we did a lot more. And as we were doing it,
if you completed the wall, how do you do more?
that came up. And when they came in, they had 3 more weeks to complete the additions to the wall, which would have been great. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. And that's when I realized that they actually want to have this disaster known as open borders. Hard to believe, isn't it? But one of the reasons we had so much success at the border was because of the fact that 2 things. We got Mexico to give us free of charge 28,000 soldiers. That helps. And President of Mexico is a great gentleman, by the way. Socialist, but that's okay. He can't have everything. But he's a great man and a great friend of mine. But 28,000 soldiers while we were building the wall. And then when the wall was finished, that's how we set all these records. We have records that nobody can even compete with. Right now, it's a disaster. I believe it's 10 million people coming in, not 3 or 4 million people. They're pouring into our country. We have no idea who they are and where they come from. We have no idea what's happening to our country. We're being poisoned. Within moments of my inauguration, catch and release will be gone forever. Remain in Mexico. Remain in Mexico, which was so important. Everybody came in here, they remained here, and they never left. You couldn't get them, you couldn't find them. I had a policy, remain in Mexico. And if you think it was easy for me to get the president of Mexico to agree to that, it wasn't. But we got it. And they terminated it, can you believe? So now they come in here, they stay, and we have no idea where they are. They get lost. And it's very dangerous for our country. And again, I'll say, we're going to pay a big price someday for what they're doing. We will begin the process of safely.
All right, you've been listening into former President Donald Trump there.
So that's Fox cutting into this feed. If you were wondering whether even the Republicans out there think that this is a low-energy, boring speech, consider the fact that Fox just cut into the feed as an indication of just what they think. So there we go. I mean, the feed is is gone because Fox decided to cut into it. I think at this point it's just more rambling nonsense. So let's just go over a few of the things that he said. I think the main thing to focus on here. The main thing to focus on here is, a lot of this campaign is going to be predicated on this idea that that the United States is crumbling under Joe Biden and that it was super successful under Donald Trump. So let's just throw a few facts out right now. Donald Trump left office with an unemployment rate that was double the unemployment rate than when he took office. He left with the worst jobs record of any president in modern American history. He lost 2.9 million jobs. Donald Trump lost 250,000 manufacturing jobs. If you look at what happened now during the Biden administration, not only have we recovered all the jobs that were lost in the pandemic, but we've recovered more than that. We've added 700,000 manufacturing jobs. A major element of what has brought investment into this country now is Biden and the Democrats passing both the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, both of which gave subsidies and funding to renewable energy, which is the exact opposite strategy that Trump took when he was in office and that Trump would take if he were to take office. That brought in tens of thousands of jobs and hundreds of billions of dollars in investments from companies looking to make renewable energy, EV batteries, chips. We've had announcements from Micron, Qualcomm, LG, Honda, First Solar, Sparks, all announcing investments in the United States as the result of the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. If you think that either one of those bills would have passed with Republican support, you are kidding yourselves. The only reason that those bills pass is because Democrats are the only ones looking to pass bills and release funding that would actually be used for renewable energy. Instead, Republicans just want to entrench our reliance on fossil fuels because they get funded by the ExxonMobils of the world, the Chevrons of the world, the BPs of the world, those same companies that are now inking record profits, and yet no Republican would dare say a word about those high prices with oil companies. Instead, they complain about gas prices and then do nothing to actually bring those prices down, and instead take money from the oil companies so that they can win their re-elections and continue to give them subsidies and coddle those companies. So anything that you hear these people say when it comes to energy independence is a sham. If we don't move now to own the game when it comes to renewables, where do you think all of those jobs and all of those manufacturing and all of those companies go to if it's not the United States to create solar panels and wind turbines and all of that stuff? It goes to China. So the same exact country that Donald Trump and Republicans fearmonger about is exactly who would benefit from our inability to look forward into the future and instead entrench our reliance on a dying industry of fossil fuels. So that's just one small indication of how Republicans would set us back, and we can see it. We can see the proof right there. As soon as they announced the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act, all of these companies announced jobs and tens or hundreds of billions of dollars of investments into this country. Again, Micron, LG, Honda, Solar, Qualcomm, Micron, all of them announced right away jobs and investments and manufacturing plants. That's why we have almost 1 million new manufacturing jobs in this country, as opposed to the 250,000 that were lost during the Trump administration. So just something to remember the next time that Donald Trump tries to claim that we're somehow in a worse position or as far as energy is concerned. Even as the world is figuring out what to do now that we realized that when we spend money in Russia to bring oil into our countries, we're funding a genocidal war. I don't think anybody in this country wants to continue to help Russia fund their war as they continue to attack Ukraine. We need to be out of this game of funding petrostates and foreign dictators just because they have this natural resource that we frankly do not need anymore. It is cheaper to use renewable energy. It's more effective to use renewable energy. There are days in California where we are basically at the point already, because we've invested early, where we're using 99.9% renewable energy. And yet, meanwhile, you've got the Donald Trumps of the world claiming that the lights go off and the refrigerator turns off at nighttime because we use solar energy. That is garbage. It doesn't make any sense. It's not true. It is just wish casting by a deluded old man who doesn't know left from right. So with that said, just some more, another indication of why he would do this. So let's talk for a moment about why Donald Trump would take the steps that he did tonight, because a lot of people are wondering, why would he do this so early? So let's jump into it. Just before I do, I want to ask, if you are just joining or if you aren't yet a subscriber of this channel, please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything. I'll continue to cover speeches like this, events like this. I've done debates and live streams during hearings and speeches like this. And so please throw me a subscribe. That is the best way to support what I do. So why would Donald Trump do this? There are a couple of reasons. First, after this resounding loss in midterms, remember, this was supposed to be the red wave election. It's an election where we're contending with high inflation. We're contending with high inflation across the world, but we're still contending with high inflation here. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt people. So usually they'll push back against the party in power. They need to blame somebody. And it's a lot easier to just say, well, Joe Biden's in office, he's in charge, and blame him, as opposed to the nuance of the argument, which is that there is inflation everywhere in every country in the world. We actually have lower inflation than they're dealing with in the UK and in Europe. But regardless, there is high inflation right now. That should be a major gimme for Republicans in terms of this last election. We're also looking at just history and what happens when one party controls the government. It should be a wave election for the other party. That didn't happen at all. In fact, Democrats expanded their majority in the Senate, and Democrats gained gubernatorial seats, and Democrats only lost a couple of seats in the House. It looks like by the time all is said and done, maybe Democrats will have lost 6 or 7 seats in the House. Republicans will have a razor-thin majority of maybe 3 or 4, maybe 3 seats in the House. So by all means, a pretty dramatic repudiation of Republicans at the ballot box. So why would Trump announce now? It's because after Republicans lost this election, you look at the candidates who Trump had endorsed, who Trump had basically put his finger on the scale to make sure that they were the nominee. You look at the Kerry Lakes, the Doug Mastrianos of the world, Tim Michels out in Wisconsin, all of these candidates who basically Trump made sure were the nominees, Dr. Oz out in Pennsylvania, and all of them lost. Every election denier that was running in a battleground state for governor or secretary of state, every single one lost. And so because these were Trump's candidates, those candidates, when they lost their elections, that was a referendum, not just on them, but the mentality that they espouse and the person who put them there, on Donald Trump. And so he is not only not the silver bullet that Republicans and he likes to claim that he is an albatross around their necks. And so the first thing that happened, as soon as all these slate of Republicans lost, is that every Republican finally recognized that the candidates that he put forward after losing elections in 2018 and 2020 and now 2022, all of these Trump candidates are not a winning formula for Republicans. And so all of those Republican officials out there, those spokespeople for the party, were like, screw this, we're supporting Ron DeSantis. There are more than I can count who've done that. And so Donald Trump, seeing the writing on the wall and knowing that the only way that his brain works in terms of bringing people back to him is just to keep speaking, decided that what he would do is hold this date that he'd already announced and announce anyway, to try to bring back the oxygen that was sucked out of the room by virtue of Ron DeSantis getting all the attention now. And so he figured he'll just make that announcement, and Ron DeSantis will lose all the attention that he's getting, and he'll make the whole story about himself again, because that's his answer to everything. So one was to try to bring back the attention that's now on Ron DeSantis. And the second thing is that he's contending with investigations all over the place. In Fulton County, Georgia, for trying to get Brad Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes that didn't exist. In New York, for the Trump Organization probe, both civil with Letitia James and criminal with Alvin Bragg. The Mar-a-Lago documents investigation at the DOJ's January 6th investigation. So he's contending with investigations everywhere. Donald Trump believes, through some tortured rationale that only works in his brain, that if he claims to be, that if he's running for office, that all of a sudden all these investigations wouldn't just be on him, but on the office of the presidency, on the nominee for the 2024 Republican who's running for president. And so it would be a way for all of these entities that are investigating him to meddle in that election. And we couldn't possibly have that. So you have to end your investigations into me. Otherwise, you're meddling in the election to try to help the evil socialist Democrats. That's what he thinks. Now, in reality, that's not true. But that doesn't matter to him, because he'll use any tortured legal rationale that he can to justify any effort to end these investigations into him. And if he can't do it in reality, he'll try to do it in the court of public opinion, which is what he'll do anyway. So that won't work, first of all. But second of all, it also remains to be seen what happens now that this race will again be a referendum on Donald Trump as we head into the Georgia runoff on December 6th. I probably don't have to remind you what happened the election in Georgia in 2020. That runoff was a referendum on Donald Trump. That's how we ended up with 2 Democratic senators from the state of Georgia. Donald Trump decided to do it again because apparently all of his endorsed candidates losing in Secretary of State races and gubernatorial races in every battleground state wasn't a repudiation enough. So with that said, something that I had to contend with prior to starting this live stream was like, do I cover this? Do I fall into the trap that like CNN made in 2016 and cover every statement that Donald Trump makes? And the answer is no. But why cover this? It's because it is so clear the way that Donald Trump has had a negative impact on all of these Republican candidates and on voters out there. And so it just happened about a week ago where all of his endorsed candidates lost in battleground states running for governor and secretary of state. And so I figure if Donald Trump wants to make this race a referendum on himself as we head into Georgia in December, then knowing that he lost by 7 million votes in 2020, knowing that he lost all of his candidates, his MAGA, America First candidates, lost again in 2022, if they want to do this, if they want to make this yet another referendum on Donald Trump heading into December, more power to you. This is not something that should scare us. I think if they want to do, the same best hits Donald Trump bullshit shtick that they did in 2020 and 2022 in this election that he's doing right now with no changes whatsoever, just the same boring speeches, the same whining about windmills and energy independence and just this low energy, one note Donald Trump shtick that he's done for so long, then more power to him. There are people within the Republican Party who have conceded that that they know that in order to win elections, including Josh Hawley coming out and saying this, we need to change something. The Republican Party as we know it is dead. And yet, knowing how much they've lost over the last few years, they trot out the exact same candidate, saying the exact same line, spewing the exact same talking points, running on the exact same platform, and denying reality to the exact same extent. If they want to change nothing, go ahead. They say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So if they want to do this over and over and over again, I don't think that they should expect a different result, but alas, they will. I think that's been made perfectly clear. So I have no qualms about doing this. And look, that's not to say that shit can't happen, that shit can't go wrong. We could be sitting here in 2024 and, it could very, you don't know what's going to happen. But I think right now we just recognize that this guy is not someone who we should be afraid of. And more importantly, this is someone who has been proven to turn out a pro-democracy majority of voters in this country, a coalition of Democrats, independents, and even Republicans who are tired of this bullshit song and dance, who are tired of this circus. You look at Lauren Boebert's race in Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. Adam Frisch needed 20% of Republicans, and he damn near got it. I mean, we're still waiting to find out the results of that race, but he's had a number of defections. People are tired of this bullshit. They're tired of the same Republican song and dance and the Donald Trump shtick. He was voted out by 7 million votes in 2020. All of his candidates lost in every single battleground gubernatorial and Secretary of State race in the entire country again in 2022. So if they want to keep trotting out the same people doing the same shtick as before, then go ahead. We'll see what happens in Georgia. I think it'll be especially important now for Democrats to turn out because it's important for Democrats to send a message that if we want to preserve democracy, we have to show up every single time. So look, I'm tired. It's been a long 2 years. It's been a really long midterm cycle. I contend without any reservations that this midterm cycle right here was absolutely crucial in staving off basically the end of democracy. I knew that if Republicans ran this last campaign on a platform of election denialism. And if they won, that would validate that strategy moving forward. And not only would more candidates pop up out of the woodwork and espouse the exact same ideology of denying election losses that they contended with, and just a general anti-democracy agenda. Not only would that happen, but the Republicans who had won under that platform would just do exactly what they promised and refuse to certify any elections if a Republican didn't win. And so that would have signaled the end of democracy. And I know that's like a hysterical thing to say, but I don't think there's any other way to say it. If you have one major political party that had won while running on a platform of the end of democracy, of not certifying any elections where they didn't win, which is objectively speaking not democratic, anti-democratic, that would have been it. And so this election, I'm perfectly fine in saying that this last election is what saved this country. And so I think it's going to be important moving forward as we head into Georgia to continue sending that message to Republicans, because every time Democrats are able to piece together a coalition of not just Democrats, but independents and Republicans who are tired of this circus, every time we're able to piece together that coalition and send another message to Republicans, another repudiation to Republicans, that is going to be the single most important thing that we can do to shore up democracy moving forward. Every time we show Republicans that this is a losing strategy, they are less inclined to do it again. Already you have people jumping off the Trump train. That's the reason that he announced tonight, is because he knew that he had to do some desperate last act to try to bring the attention back onto him, because he is flailing right now. He made this announcement not from a position of strength. He made it from a position of weakness. That is beyond clear. He has never been more weak than he is right now. That's why he made this announcement. He is insulating himself from news cycles where everybody starts to fawn over someone like Ron DeSantis. He's insulating himself from the investigations and the indictments that are closing in on him. He is not in a position of strength. So he's doing poorly, personally speaking, and his candidates and the platform that they espouse are losing constantly, but it's going to continue to take more time. I think what we have to be okay with is knowing that this is going to be a prolonged fight, and we should have some reassurance in the fact that we were able to piece together that coalition and keep people engaged and energized and informed in 2020 to kick him out of office. We were able to replicate that same coalition in 2022. I think it's going to be just as important to continue to do it in this next Georgia runoff on December 6th, and not just sit back and relax because we already have a majority in the Senate, and to continue heading into 2024 with the exact same mentality of, yes, we are tired. I'm tired. We've been doing this for a long time. It is exhausting. I wish politics was boring. This is not why I got into it. But as long as we have that mentality that we're here to fight, and so long as we continue to fight, we'll continue to get those wins like we are doing right now, then I think that's a good thing, and that we should all be, on board to do this for the long haul. And that doesn't mean we focus on Donald Trump and fall over his every word. I don't intend to cover every time this guy opens his mouth and a bunch of words fall out of his face, because, man, his speeches are hard to cover. I mean, they are streams of consciousness where just errant synapses fire, and just, words just come out. Some string of words just comes out and falls onto the floor. So they are difficult to cover. I don't intend to cover all of his speeches, but look, if they want to make this, if Republicans want to make this race another referendum on Donald Trump, just like they did on November the 8th, and just like they did in 2020, then more power to them. It's a formula that's lost in 2018. It's a formula that lost in 2020. It's a formula that lost in 2022. And I will do everything that I can. I hope that you will do everything that you can to make sure that it loses again in 2024. So we'll see what happens as we move forward. I would ask you now, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel and you want to continue to tune in to live streams like this one, and also I'll be covering the results of that Colorado 3rd Congressional District race between Lauren Boebert and Adam Frisch. As soon as we have any information on that, I'll cover that as well. So if you want to stay on top of stuff like this and that race right there, subscribe to this channel. I also do breaking news videos on a daily basis, and I do a video podcast once a week. I also do an interview series where I've interviewed everyone from Joe Biden to just this weekend, Adam Frisch, who's running against Lauren Boebert, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, Buttigieg, Jen Psaki, basically the whole gamut. If you are, somebody in the Democratic Party or even Republicans a couple of times, although they're exceedingly difficult to get booked, then please throw me a subscribe. That is the best way to support this channel and what I do. So with that said, just a quick update now on the Boebert-Frisch race, because I know a lot of people are asking about that. Right now, Adam Frisch is trailing Lauren Boebert in Colorado's 3rd congressional district by about 1,100 votes. He expects that there are about 3,000 to 5,000 ballots that are still yet to be counted. We expect that of those ballots, about 1,000 of them are ballots that need to be cured. So they've been reaching out pretty aggressively to voters who may have left a date off or made some minor error on their ballot just to get those fixed so that they can count. But we should be expecting some results, some final results to come in, I believe, at some point tomorrow. So we should expect to hear an announcement about Colorado's 3rd congressional district maybe tomorrow, maybe Thursday. But again, like I said, subscribe to this channel, because as soon as we have any new information about that race, I'll make sure to cover it on this channel. So with that said, thank you for watching. I hope that it was informative. I apologize that his speech was god-awful boring. He did what we expected, which is to announce that he is running for president in 2024. I don't think anybody should be surprised. Again, the point that I would drive home here is he's not doing this from a position of strength. He's doing it from a position of weakness. Democrats just had a better midterm election than they could have possibly imagined. This was the first time since 1934 that Democrats didn't lose a single state legislative chamber and instead gained trifectas in a number of states, including Maryland, Massachusetts. We're waiting to find out if we won the Pennsylvania State House, the New Hampshire State House, expanded our Senate majority, and yes, we did lose a couple of seats in the House, but we also gained governor seats in a number of states, including holding on to that seat in Pennsylvania, holding on to that seat in Wisconsin, holding on to that seat in Michigan, flipping that seat in Arizona, and holding on to that seat in Oregon. So objectively good news. It's also coming on the heels of an inflation rate that is coming down right now. Again, this was a major theme in Trump's speech, which I guess he tried to still make from the whole midterm cycle work. I guess he's just recycling that from midterms, even though we have pretty convincing evidence that just yelling inflation and crime on an endless loop does not work with voters. But he still is recycling that same talking point. But this month we just found out that the inflation rate, the CPI, was 0.2%. If you annualize that, that's 2.4% inflation. That is as low as we could possibly hope for. So that is good news on the inflation front. On the gas front, prices are now at an average of about $3.39 across the country. So that's gas coming down several dollars from where it was, and they continue to go down. We have investments pouring into this country because of the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act that's led a number of EV battery manufacturers and renewable manufacturers and chip manufacturers to start opening up plants in the United States. Manufacturing is having a renaissance in the U.S. because of legislation that Democrats passed. They were those companies expressly said that it was the result of that Democratic legislation that they've decided to come back to the U.S. So any way you cut it, all of the policies that the Democrats are enacting right now are beneficial for both jobs, for Americans. They've passed healthcare reforms that would cap out-of-pocket costs for seniors at $2,000 a year, that would cap insulin costs at $35 a month, that would allow the government to finally negotiate lower drug prices. All of it paid for, by the way, by imposing a 15% minimum tax on companies that pay zero. These are billion-dollar companies that pay nothing. And also funding the IRS so that they can catch wealthy tax cheats. There is a reason that Republicans don't want the IRS to be able to catch ultra-wealthy tax cheats. It's because those people are their donors. So they will do anything they can. They have done everything they can. They want to protect their rich donors, and they want to prevent all of these laws from passing that would benefit regular people, laws that would cap your healthcare costs, laws that would fund investments into the climate, laws that would bring jobs into the United States, laws that would expand renewable energy manufacturing. So all of these things are important. What we're doing right now is working, and I think the things that Trump said, where he's just kind of relying on a bunch of tired talking points that he spouted in 2020 and 2016, kind of don't really make sense, and kind of show that he's just running a lazy campaign, mostly just to take the attention away from Ron DeSantis and away from his investigations. So another just scheme, basically a grift to help himself at the end of the day, wrapped in a facade of trying to help you, because he's still trying to run this fake populist campaign. And yet when you look at the biggest legislative achievement during the Trump era, it was a tax cut that overwhelmingly favored millionaires and billionaires. That's it. He tried to eliminating the inheritance tax, the death tax, whatever. It only applies to people making like $11 million a year. That's this populist president's plan. So in any case, compare that with this president who just eliminated student loan debt, or attempted to eliminate student loan debt for 43 million borrowers making under $75,000 a year before Republicans took them to court to oppose that legislation. So we're waiting to find out what happens on that. With all of that said, I'll leave it there. Again, one last request. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel and you're watching right now, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. That is the best way to support what I do. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'll talk to you soon.